Are you serious? Are you serious? Folks, we got a terrible situation. Two buildings, I repeat. Breaking news, New York City, massive explosion. Two buildings sitting side by side, apartment complexes, 4 or 5 stories high, have exploded, have completely collapsed. And there are many injuries and many people missing and feared dead. Also, we know the first four injured have already rushed to a hospital, one of them in critical condition. Eyewitnesses said they saw people flying out of the windows when the explosion hit. Let's see if I can get some information quickly right now for you.
That's exactly how they look in so many cases. And Kai, these tend to be older buildings, some of them dating from the turn of the last century.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very common, especially in this area of Manhattan. There are a lot of old buildings, particularly in this section of Harlem and East Harlem. So, and especially the ones that tend to be about 4 or 5 stories, maybe even lower than that. They tend to be, not always, but they tend to be the older buildings. And we're not sure exactly when these buildings that actually came down, what era they were from. But it is possible.
Okay, so as they're trying to describing the type of buildings, very old. 4 or 5 stories high, both of them. A lot of apartments inside, a lot of people. It happened at 9:31 a.m. Eastern Time, New York City time, 9:31 a.m. And obviously, 4 people rushed to the hospital, 1 in critical condition, but multiple injuries, multiple people missing and feared dead because both buildings completely have collapsed. I mean, completely collapsed. We're talking 4 or 5 stories each. So the people that would have been inside these apartments are in a very critical situation here. Some would be in critical condition, and many would be considered dead. We don't know how many people were in the building, but we're trying. I can tell you, I've seen pictures of the smoke rolling. It's a terrible situation live happening there in New York City. And firemen are everywhere. Let's see what we can find out.
The debris, and we're clearly beginning to see a huge gaping hole in between those 2 buildings right there, where the buildings that exploded, where they used to be. Michael?
Kai, obviously you're a part of the investigation here, but when you think about this, people are reporting hearing this blast from as far away as a mile. And when you look at the aftermath and you look at what is left, or how little is left, we could say, of these buildings, you have to think this was a massive explosion.
A mile?
Well, absolutely. And there are 2 things that you're going to look at here. The temptation is to judge it from the fact that the buildings are not there anymore. You really can't judge it in terms of the explosion. You can't judge it based on that. You sort of have to judge the explosion portion of this more on the debris field, how far away that the debris spread after.
Folks, when you have 2 buildings that are completely gone, and they were 4 or 5 stories, and people could hear the blast a mile away, then you've had a massive explosion. When the eyewitnesses saw people flying out of the buildings, bodies, people flying out of buildings. Now we know 4 people have been rushed to the hospital. That's the first initial response, 1 in critical condition. But there are multiple injuries, and there are many people missing, as you can imagine. 2 buildings completely destroyed, massive explosion in New York City on the corner of 116th and Park, down there in Lower Manhattan, in Harlem, and this is not a good situation at all. This you have to think terrorism. You have to wonder. I mean, if it was a gas leak of some sort, no, this is too powerful. This is too powerful. And this seems to be a pattern now. We just had one 10 days ago in New Jersey. So here we are with these situations developing. We go through a series of train derailments between America and Canada, crude oil, diesel fuel, chemicals, gasoline explosions, people dying. We went through a series of plant explosions in Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma and other places. Now we're going through buildings. What's going on? Are you serious? What is going on?
This acrid-smelling smoke is so thick, it's hard to walk through and breathe, let alone see. So this is a safety precaution that we, as reporters here at the scene, are wearing, and that we're also seeing the FDNY and police and other first responders wearing this morning. You could also imagine, along with all those people here trying to get into this scene to save those that are still inside. We were told this morning that there may be people trapped right now. Along with those first responders,
well,
a lot of people here in this neighborhood, you could see around me gathering here trying to figure out what exactly took place this morning. We've been speaking with a number of them, from those that were on the Metro North that saw this happen to a gentleman who was next door asleep in his bed when what he described as a loud explosion took place. His entire floor, his entire building, he says, rattled. That's when he went outside, glass still falling from the sky, he says. In fact, he was cut
from
when
the
he
sky.
saw what was a building that used to be there, clouded with smoke and fire. And what we now know, of course, as you're seeing from Chopper 4 in those images, most of this building, at least it appears from our vantage point here on the ground, fell down in what people are describing as this loud explosion. We've also been seeing this morning, again, back to possible victims. I spoke with one witness who said she saw people that were in this building when this collapsed. We're talking a residential building. We are confirming it's 5 stories. There is a church on the bottom floor of this building. This witness saying there were people inside, and in fact, this morning we continue to see first responders, the FDNY, and police wheeling people away from the scene, from the impact of this explosion in these stretchers into ambulances and whisked away. That is still happening right now. Very much an active scene here. And to put into perspective again just how strong this explosion was, we were telling you all morning, buildings across the street from this, the windows completely shattered. A lot of these are storefronts. The items within were blown out onto the street, and that's just this block. If you go further away, I spoke with one person about 5 blocks away who said his building also rattled, describing it as an earthquake. So a lot of confusion this morning as we continue to piece together just what exactly happened.
We will be covering this live
around 8:30 this morning or so, but again, an active scene.
We'll be covering this live on my broadcast today. So my show starts at 12 noon Eastern. I'm on for 3 hours. Obviously, we'll be covering this story live, as well as what about the missing plane, the Malaysia plane? Where is it at? Was it hijacked? What's going on? Ukraine, what's going on there? America sending warships into the Black Sea, starting military drills with Bulgarian and Romanian forces. Also, United States sending fighter jets into Poland to do air drills with Poland on the Ukrainian border. There's a lot going on. I will see you guys at 12 noon Eastern. My website, www.paulbegleyprophecy.com. That's www.paulbegleyprophecy.com. Pray for the people of New York.